my like office art studio. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
chaos,
it's
but
good.
fine.
How long does it take you to draw one of your
A long
comics?
time. I mean, it just depends on,
Yeah.
how complicated it is, but if it's like a carousel with a lot, it can take hours and hours. And if it's something
Yeah.
smaller, it's not. But yeah, a lot goes into them. And then you know how Instagram, the algorithm is like sometimes no one even sees it and you're like,
So
cool.
you're like, great, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks,
Thank
Instagram.
you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that my artwork is making it out to the public.
Yes. And yeah, but you never know what hits. So you just keep going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you first start doing this?
Yeah. Well, so I was a blogger like back in the day when everyone had
Me too.
blogs.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we got that in common. Yeah. So I started out blogging. I did that for like 10 years. And so I think I always include that because I think that was kind of my first foray into like exploring, sharing my life and my personal stories online, So by the time I started making comics, which was in January 2022, I'd spent like 10 years kind of like telling about my personal life, explaining what's going on, talking about my husband, talking about my marriage, talking about, stress and all of that. So making comics felt like, I'm a graphic designer. I've always been an artist. And before I was kind of more of fine arts. And then I was teaching yoga and, worked various corporate jobs and focusing on blogging. So it was all those kind of things that then eventually came together. And I started my own graphic design business and, worked on my blog, graphic design, yoga teacher. That was kind of my career journey. And then I had two kids. So I have a 7-year-old and 4-year-old, almost
They
8 and 5.
change everything, absolutely everything.
Yeah, they do. So my blog kind of like slowly petered off after I had kids, even though I was like so religious about it before. But I still kind of had, my personal Instagram feed that was associated with my blog. So in January 2022, which just, or January 2020, sorry, right before the pandemic, is when I started. I just started making these little comics and they were really just, I think I made, one or two just as like a fun thing to play with and to share to my personal Instagram. And, I had, like, I don't know, 1,500 followers there. It's just like very small personal group. And I started noticing pretty quickly that they started, those were out of everything I shared, which, I was sharing, I'm a yoga teacher, so I was sharing yoga stuff. And, it had kind of that blogger-esque feel to my Instagram feed at that time. I started noticing that the comics were really, getting some traction. People were sharing, lots of comments. At that point, a lot of my yoga students who had been with me since my like yoga blogging days were my followers. And they were a lot of mom-aged women. So, it was kind of like, as I started making these little comics about motherhood for my personal feed, though they were kind of like the same life stage a lot of my very small little online community was going through. So started noticing those got traction. So I kept doing them. They were fun. Then the pandemic hit. Then they became my creative outlet as I was stuck at home, and I obviously everything slowed down for everybody. I was still working from home with the kids, running my business, but that slowed. So I had more time to do the comics and just kind of explore. It really was like some people it's like a therapeutic outlet, kind of like a new creative way to express kind of my frustrations with early motherhood during a pandemic, all the things that we all have talked about so much now. So I started making them. They started to catch on in, let's see, I guess I always have to jot down my timeline. A year later.
I mean, 2020 has messed up everybody's sense of time. Don't you guys think? Like,
Pretty much.
Yeah, I
2020 was
still
like
feel like
5
that
years
was like,
in one.
right. And I also have like this weird time warp where I still feel like 2020 was like last year.
Yeah, it is really weird. And I think depending on when your kids were young too, it like compounds that or changes that or, whatever stage your kids were in. It's also like, I don't know, it's all a blur, but it was just the really hard years. There's like 5 really hard years. And like the pandemic was chucked right in the middle of it. But yeah, so I guess it was then July 2021. So I'd been making these comics for about a year and sharing them on my personal feed a little bit more than that. I finally was like, these are really, what I was seeing was those were really making the rounds, but I wasn't really getting new followers because it was like people would click over and it would just be like pictures of me and my family and there would be a comic here or there.
Yeah.
So I decided, I wonder what would happen if I like made a feed that was just these comics. Like, would that help me kind of reach more people and be, kind of a new way to explore telling my story and online. So I made a feed, Momlife Comics, and obviously kind of what I was hoping would happen is that they, it started growing much quicker than my little personal feed had. And so I did that until, well, I had about 15,000 followers in January 2022, which is like 2 years after I started making the comics. And that was Momlife Comics. And then one of my comics went viral. So that's kind of, the beginning of what is now the journey I'm on with the comics, which is, kind of eclipsed a lot of the other stuff I do just because of the nature of having a bigger community.
Exactly. Yeah. And like your comics make me laugh so much because they're so relatable. Real. Frustrations that like I have in my daily life, like you capture so perfectly in it. One of the ones like I was looking at too is the guy with the weapon, like the weaponized incompetence and the tools of weaponized incompetence. And that's like something that we talk about on the podcast here too. About that.
Like that one, my husband gave me the idea for that. He's like, what would be so funny if you drew like a picture of me, and I didn't make it him. I made it any man because I don't want to always make it about him. But he was like, you made a picture of me doing all the things I say when I like want to not do something. And I was like, that's a great idea. Yeah. So, he's a very big part of all of this, both from an inspiration standpoint and like a kind of being okay with being the butt of the joke. And I think that's really what, in the earlier days of me making these, I think that is more what resonated is that a lot of them are really personal. They're like very personal stories, but they're, what I've learned is that, so many of us are dealing with these kind of dynamics in our home, despite really loving our husbands, and so trying to figure out a way to, I never want it to be like, haha, this is funny and it's totally fine. I want to be like, this is funny, but also it's not okay. We need to change it. So that's kind of the balance I'm trying to strike with my comics.
Okay, let's see if I can grab some of the emotion from the weaponized incompetence comic. All right, let's see if I'm going to say a couple of the tools that the guy has, and you guys tell me on a rating of like 1 to 10. Like, am I close to what it would sound like? Ready? Oh, but you're so much better at it than I am. Is that one good?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
How about no, you didn't tell me I need to do that.
Yeah. My husband always just will say, I didn't, you never told me that. I never heard that. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like,
right.
Yeah.
But hey, I don't even know where it goes. You know where it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, here's the one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one, I just don't care about it as much as you do. Like, I just don't care about it.
Oh, that one stings.
Like, I don't
that
mind.
One makes me like rage inside.
I don't mind if there's like dishes piling up on the sink. Like, it just doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me like it does you.
No, always.
Yeah. But it's so much easier and quicker if you just do it.
I know I made it, but it's still making me mad.
It still makes me mad. It's so funny though, like you read these things and these are things like my teenager says to me and I get mad about that.
That's what I was going to say. Can we add the weaponized like part of it? Like it's an every man, but it's also an every teen. Like, yeah.
It is an every teen thing. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, Mary Catherine, you are not at this stage yet with your children, but get ready. It is coming. Teens are wonderful. I do have to say that right from the beginning because they are wonderful and they have their qualities, but it's like one of the most talked about things when it comes to teens. It's not rebellious. It's like making you question your whole being kind of thing. Like
I feel that with a toddler, so I gotta get it.
Yeah. But they're the biggest gaslighters. Like I constantly have to check myself and I'm like, did I say that? What did I say?
And it's funny. You said, Mary Catherine, right there that like you get it from your toddler. You do because we always say that teens are preschoolers, but with better vocabulary. It's the same. It's the same like. It's that same thought process, just at a higher vocab level.
Yes.
That's all it is.
My toddler will absolutely gaslight all of us. He will throw himself on the ground and then say, "You hit me," and like, "Or you pushed me."
No, he does not.
Like, I will not even touch him, and he will act like he's been pushed to the ground by a parent. And we both. My husband and I find ourselves looking at each other being like, you didn't touch him, did you? No, you didn't, did you? Like, because he does. He truly gaslights us into thinking that we're just like knocking him around, but he just throws himself. So Yes, I know about the gaslighting. It's tough. It's really tough.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
so tough. It's unbelievable. Like I was just listening to an episode on Armchair Expert about narcissism, and like she actually says, she makes it a point. She's like, okay, now with narcissism, we're talking about people over the age of 25. And both me and my husband were like, that's because everyone under there is a narcissist.
So true. It's so true.
Everybody.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Well,
It does make me feel better. It does make me feel better to hear that again. Like I have to hear that part because like I'm constantly like, are my kids super, super selfish? Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. They are just a teen.
They're just a teen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Mary Catherine, one of the things I also love about your comics is the way you really highlight the differences between male expectations in society and female expectations. And I want to get into that right after this. Something you do so well in your comics is you really attack this like patriarchy that we have, but in a really fun and accessible way. Things that like help us see exactly the differences between how men think of things and how women think of things. And what I wanted to talk to you about is this comic you have about what if dads spoke about hiring household help the way moms do. And in the comic, if you have not, we're posting a link to Mary Catherine's Instagram in the show notes. But in the comic, you have these dads or men talking about hiring like a cleaner. And in each of these scenes, it's saying something along the lines of, I don't like paying someone to do something that I can do. And I was wondering like what the story is behind that and what like the connection is to you in that.
Yeah. Well, so, personally, I have really been working so hard since becoming a mom. Well, probably ever since I, started living with somebody else, but to kind of pull my self-worth away from like how clean the house is. I do not believe that the cleanliness of a house reflects on the woman in the household. I do not believe that. And yet, because of growing up in our society and in the home I grew up in, like I think in my bones, I believe I'm a failure if my house is clean. Yep. And so like what my intellect tells me versus what I feel when our house is really messy is just like, I'm constantly stuck in a push and pull between that. And so this comic came from that place where I am always trying to figure out in our house, like, obviously we all know once you have kids, your house is just always a disaster, no matter how much you clean, no matter how much you work on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that until I feel like someone else is going to see it. Right. Like, I mean, obviously some clutter drives me crazy, but like, I don't think I'm a bad mother because I have a dirty house until someone stops by, and then I am horrified. And I feel like I can't believe they saw that. What do they think of me? And I hate that. I hate that I feel that way. And my husband feels none of that. Zero.
I
Nothing.
know.
Right? Nothing.
They make it, they need to focus. Okay, pharmaceutical land. You guys need to work on a pill that can like take and give us the guilt level of males.
Yes, and give them some of our guilt. They need some.
Yes.
I mean, because he truly, like, no part of him thinks that the house reflects on him as a person. And so even though I know that it doesn't reflect on me, I really struggle with it. So I'm constantly trying to like, how can I because I'm overwhelmed, as we all know. We're all overwhelmed. We're all burnt out. So I'm always trying to figure out like, who can I hire? How can I outsource this thing so that I don't have to do this part of the house, whether that's, hiring a house cleaner, which is like a whole nother conversation of, guilt and should the money go here, and all of that privilege and so much there to unpack. But, just on the surface, like any sort of outsourcing of anything that I feel in our society has been called like a female job around the house, even though I don't believe it actually is, anything that I outsource in that way, I have all this internal struggle about it. Am I a failure because I can't do this? I feel guilty. I feel embarrassed, And my husband has none of that. So that's kind of what started this comic. Is I was actually looking for someone to pay to fold our laundry, which I have succeeded in doing, and she has been a game changer.
Services for yes.
And
it's
I
good
love
stuff.
her. I call her our laundry goddess. She comes to our house once a week, and she just folds laundry for 2 hours, and it's the best.
Wait, she just folds it? You don't have her do like the washing?
I don't
too?
want her to. No, that's not the part I need. I don't care about washing. I work from home. I can throw stuff in.
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I am
so
the
she
same
just comes
way.
and folds. She folds it, puts it away. She's in charge of like switching out the seasonal stuff for the kids. She's just like a laundry guru.
That's
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And but I have so much guilt around that. But like, why is it my job to do the household laundry? It's not.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to outsource it. And then, that has created all this guilt. So blah, blah, blah. All of that is what kind of got me thinking about this comic. Like, what if men felt even an iota of what we feel? And then,
right?
The dialogues are pretty easy. Like everything that I've heard any of my friends say or anyone online say to me, I just flipped it to a man saying it, and that's not hard.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting, the guilt that we feel around this. And like, I felt the same thing about hiring a house cleaner, and I've had a house cleaner for many, many years. And I admit to myself, like, I hate cleaning. I hate it, like, with a passion, and we wouldn't do it. And the first time I hired a house cleaner and like they were finished for the day, and I went upstairs and my house smelled amazing.
Yeah.
And like my current house cleaners, actually, they make like little roses and flowers with the ends of the paper towels and the toilet paper.
We're going to need a picture of that on Instagram.
And it's just like gorgeous. They do such a better job than I ever could.
Yeah.
And I think like from watching that happen, it's made me appreciate that, hey, like this money is actually being given to like a really good thing. Because we get so much guilt as women around money, like all the time,
spending any money on ourselves, right? Like
any money.
And like you just said, both of you just said, like you're not spending it on yourself,
no,
like on cleaning the house, but yet you feel like you are, because it's like, well, I guess technically this is like my job to be doing this, even though no, you've got a full-time job.
Yeah. And it makes me so angry. Like at myself because I try to have a lot of grace about it, but I'm like, I don't believe this. Like I can say without a doubt in my mind, I do not believe that a house reflects on a woman. And yet here I am, and so it's just, I feel like this is like a microcosm of everything about motherhood. Like we can say, I don't feel that this isn't something that defines me about being a mother or being a good mother. But then the fact is we grew up in a culture that tells us what makes a good mother. And so everything that we do, we are seeing in this kind of through this lens of, am I good or am I bad? And usually I find myself lacking, and why is that? Because I've been told that moms have to do everything and do it all perfectly. So like the house is just one example of, I think, every single thing that we come up against as a mom and like every facet of mothering. And so
it's insidious too. Like it gets in your brain, like how you're talking right now about, it intellectually, but you feel it in your heart. Like it is so pervasive in society that like and this from being like public on Instagram, and you get like all of these horrible comments from people that tell you your like worst fears about yourself, and you see them and you're like, oh, intellectually that's not true, but then you feel yourself like
you feel it
doing it.
You can't turn that off, right?
Like I mean, there was this viral thing that went. I said something about Harrison Butker, which was a very.
I saw her comic on that too. I'm like,
and of course, all of the white men came out of the woodwork and started like harassing me about it, and how like you don't like think women should stay home or like lazy or, all those things. And you hear them and you're like, oh, they're just dumb. But then I will see myself around the house, and I found myself the other night doing one of my husband's jobs because I'm like, oh, I just want to help him out. I just want to make sure. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what is this doing to me?
Yeah. I mean, so it absolutely, I mean, I truly think it's like, it's so hard to even begin to separate like what we've been taught versus what we actually believe. And I'm constantly trying to like examine that. And it's really hard. It's really hard. It's like a lifelong journey. Yeah.
Something else that you tackle in your comics is body image with men and women. And I want to get into that right after this. Something else you really tackle is this body image between men and women. And I loved one that you posted recently, especially because we're in the middle of summer. It's swimsuit season. And how like men's bodies are always like glorified in some extent. Like it's dad bod. Look at him. He's out there having fun. And then you have mom out here kind of hiding under all of her cover-ups or being judged and saying like, oh, she should be wearing that. She shouldn't be wearing that. Like,
so upsetting. It's so upsetting.
I was telling Joanne about this. I don't know if you saw this too, Mary Catherine, but there was this TikTok that went around for a little while ago. It's got to be at least a month old, if not longer
Mhm.
now, where this woman was saying, like, if you have like, if you're over a certain age or if you are over a certain size, you should not be wearing crop tops. I'm sorry,
Oh
I'm
my
going to say it.
gosh.
Right?
Yeah,
And
I
it's
did
like
not see that.
nobody would ever say that there is a certain thing that, like, like you're pointing out there, like nobody would ever say there's a certain thing that a man shouldn't wear.
Right,
But
right.
let's police women and make them feel
Yeah, one more thing that's
negative.
wrong with them. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing they're failing at is now their bodies too, and
Their
it's not just your, the shape of your body or your weight. It's also your body hair. It's also your skin tone. It's also your hair. It's also, your teeth. I mean, it's just all of it, your wrinkles, anything. I mean, I just, our eyebrow shape. I mean, every single thing about us. What's wrong? What is wrong? Everything. Yeah, I mean, I have so much I want to say about body image that I haven't even begun to scratch the surface in terms of my comics, because that's kind of, I mean, it's another area that I'm super passionate about. Before becoming a mom, I was like very focused on that. So I'm going to do more with that, because I just think that's another double standard that's like obviously everywhere.
Well, it's
and
interesting
especially in
because
summer.
like our kids are actually growing up in a slightly different environment than we did. Like early 90s is like late 90s really. I graduated in 99 from high school. But like the body image then was like you really had to be thin. It was like the Mandy Moore aesthetic on MTV Spring Break. Now like I'm seeing more acceptable images of bodies come out. So much so that like my daughter was a swimsuit shopping, and like she and I have very like similar bodies where we're not stick thin, like they're very healthy, they're great, but it's a body I also would not have been confident to wear a two-piece about when I was a teenager. Now I am. My daughter has no qualms about it. She's like, oh, I like those suits and they're wonderful. And I love that is her perception of bodies now.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. So
Yeah.
there is hope coming with Gen Z with body positivity.
So. Yeah.
I'm curious though, like what else do you want to say about body image? Like you said, you've just begun to scratch the surface.
Well, I think kind of the next frontier, as I am about to be 40 soon, later this year, and like as I start to age, for me, I've been thinking a lot about aging and like, the expectations around how women age and how men age, silver fox versus like going gray and letting yourself go, looking old versus looking, I forget what people call men right now, but like I just feel like the George Clooney versus distinguished. Thank you. Yes. Or like salt and pepper. And so I just I that's another. I mean, I think it's all very related. I'm sorry. It's all very related for me, but I think the aging is the next place I want to talk about. But I'm always coming back to body shape and just
there's something about turning 40 that makes you go in that route, that makes you start questioning, and I think it's for, I don't know if it's for men as much as it is for women, because
they have their midlife crises, things that they've like it's just different. Like we have our body image stuff, we have like our household responsibilities. Men really have there's like a bug flying around here. That's what I'm looking for. Get away from me. Men really have qualms about like if they're strong enough, if they're big enough, if they're protectors. Like if a guy is like tinier than other men, he does feel it. Versus if a woman is larger than other women, that's what she feels. So like they have their own hangups and everything. I wanted to bring it back to the aging comment though, because aging among women, like it's not like a natural thing that's discussed, because you look at people like I was just watching Atlas yesterday on Netflix, which is the new JLo movie, and JLo's in her mid 50s and she looks phenomenal.
I know, like, if I look like that when I am at the I want to look like her.
But what she has to do to achieve that is unreal. No caffeine, no sugar, like daily intense workouts.
I'm out.
Right.
Everything for that.
And I think too, I mean, I'm seeing so much more. I love it because I see online, I think there's a lot more women who are being really transparent about what they do to stay looking young. So many more people are coming out saying like, I do Botox or I do this, or, I get these treatments once every 2 months or whatever it is. And I appreciate that. I appreciate people saying, like, this is how I
being honest,
stay looking young and vibrant and, but I also feel like that's also problematic, right? Like I want the honesty, I want the transparency. It's not problematic if you choose to do that. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we all feel that we need to look young is the problem there. So not that I think any woman can make any choice they want about their body and how they look, and that's fabulous. I don't care what you do. But I think the fact that we all feel this pressure. So whether we're doing it or not, whether we're doing something about it or not, I think we're all feeling this societal, young is good, wrinkles are bad, aging is, as a woman means you lose all value and you start to be ignored by society, So, I just think that I still have a lot to explore there, but I've just been noticing that in my peers and some of the people I follow, and I'm like, what's going on here?
No, it's a really good point. Like, do what makes you feel happy and what brings you joy, not because you feel like you have to be valued.
Right.
That's that tricky part there.
And again, what part of that is it makes me happy versus I'm doing it because I think I have to look good in the eyes of others, and I think that's a really hard line. Again, coming back to the same thing about the house cleaning, like it's really hard to separate what you actually believe, what makes you feel confident versus what makes you feel confident because otherwise you'll feel bad about yourself because you're told this is how you're supposed to be. Yeah.
I think that's really the key. And it's interesting about you mentioned how people are more open about what they do to their body. Mm-hmm. There's an author that I follow and I love her books like so much, but she was getting ready to go out on a book tour for a really big book. And she made it public, like what she did to her face before the book tour. And it was like a lot of injections in the face. And I'm like, oh, no, like you don't have to do that. Please don't do that. And she says to freshen up for her book tour and for all of her pictures. And it really comes down to the thing of, okay, how will I not be ignored by other people? How will people not make this about the way I look and concentrate instead on what I produce? Right. Because I think that's always the subject with women. Like if you don't look like you're wide awake and you're like put together, oh my gosh, the subject will automatically go to your looks. And then Leonardo DiCaprio's out here like, what happened, Leo? Come on. Why isn't anyone talking about that? And why is he's like, oh, he's such an amazing actor. And no one's saying Leo let himself go. Where if Leo was a woman, that would have been the conversation.
Absolutely.
That one makes me so mad because he was hottie.
Yeah, I mean, I think but you bring up a good point. Like, it's not that men don't get the scrutiny. It's that the type of scrutiny and the amount of scrutiny they get and the judgment on, like, their character based on their appearance. Like, people maybe they'd say, oh, he's let himself go. But no one really cares. Whereas if a woman can be, like, erased from society over time if she isn't seen as, like, caring about how she looks.
That's true.
And isn't constantly trying to kind of keep up. So, yeah, it's
exhausting.
It's exhausting.
You're totally right, though, because Leo's income is not at all affected. In fact, he probably got another Oscar because he's so brave to go out in the world like that,
Yeah, he looks so rugged and he's been through a tough life and isn't that so valued?
Rugged, it would be the description, and run over would be the description if it were a woman. Like,
it's totally true.
Run down, not run over. Run down.
That one just makes me upset. Well, I so love the work you do, Mary Catherine. What do you have coming up for you that you're really excited about?
Well, like any mom, doing a project that would take other people maybe like a year has taken me like 2 or 3. And I've been working on a book mid 2022 is when I started this process, and my book will be coming out in March of 2025. So it's still far away, but I am getting close. So obviously, long time for anybody listening before it's actually out, but I'm still in the throes of that, and that's really what I'm focused on. But otherwise, I'm excited, now that I'm wrapping up finally my book, I'm excited to kind of refocus on making new comics and tackling some of these new subjects. Cause I've been so busy that I've been having to like repost a lot of old comics. And, so I'm excited to kind of explore some new stuff in the next couple months.
I love it.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, I love all your comics. Like I look forward to each and every one that you post. And thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'll talk to you soon.